led by Manal Shega, coordinated and organized this event together with the team who will introduce themselves shortly. I'd love it if everyone could mute themselves. If not, I'll be running around policing everyone and muting your connection. If you do have any questions, we really encourage you to type any questions you have in the chat. I'll be taking those questions and asking them on your behalf at the very end of the session. We're going to start soon, but before we do, I just want to tell you a bit about the Spirit of Mesopotamia and the board of directors. We have May, who is the president of the nonprofit organization. We have Muayyad Al-Rawaf, who is the vice president of the organization. We have Mohanad Al-Shega is the chief financial officer, and Ali acting as the secretary for the organization. But everyone has to stay mute, okay? So don't be upset. Look at this, you'll find the chat feature at the bottom. If you want to ask any questions, please put it in the chat. You'll find, I'm gonna type in right now the website for the organization. Mace is going to put in the agenda. So if you wanna know what's going to happen today and what the order of things, you'll find it in the chat. And also, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We'll be reminding you throughout. Mina, take it away.
صباح الخير. صباح الخير إلى الجالية العراقية في كاليفورنيا. أرحب بكم. اليوم استضيف شابة أمريكية عراقية مبدعة جدا، هي موجودة بيناتنا. خرجت عن الأشياء الطبيعية وراحت على الحلم مالتها في تكوين فيلم عن العراق. فالشابة العراقية المبدعة هي ياسمين الطريحي. You want to say something, Yasmeen? You can unmute. Yasmeen?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Manal. Thank you so much, Ban and Manal and the rest of the team of the Spirit of Mesopotamia. It's so lovely to be here with you all. I'm just honored that I have a space to talk about my journey, and I'm really excited to be a part of this organization. I think we all need it in our culture today. So thank you so much for introducing me.
Thank you, Yasmeen. We're doing this thing in the cultural committee of the Spirit of Mesopotamia. And this program is going to be 45 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but it's going to have, we're going to tell you a little bit, a summary about the Spirit of Mesopotamia. Then we're going to tell you a summary about the culture, the cultural committee. Then we will have a trailer about the movie. And we're gonna tell you about the bio for Yasmeen Turayhi. Then we're gonna interview this fabulous filmmaker, Yasmeen Turayhi. In the end, there's gonna be a quiz about the Mesopotamia civilization, and we wish that you all participate in it to have more, it's gonna be fun. And we like to also get your questions. If you have any questions to Yasmeen, you can write it in the chat area, then we're going to answer them. So I'm going to start with the SOM. The SOM is the Spirit of Mesopotamia. The SOM Cultural Committee is a group of committed team members who strive to bring the community together through establishing creative, educational, social activities focused on understanding the wealth of history and knowledge that was inherited from Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and utilizing it in building a strong present and future. This group seeks to bridge the gap between the younger generation of the Iraqi Americans to their precious roots by inviting and recognizing high achievers in the community inside and outside Iraq, in order to understand the challenges and to get inspired by their successful stories. And we're starting with Yasmeen, of course. So good morning, lovely friends. Thank you for attending today's Zoom meeting. This program is presented by the Cultural Committee of the Spirit of Mesopotamia, a nonprofit organization. Today's guest is a fabulous example of a person with a clear vision that took the extra mile to fulfill her dreams and to make a difference in what she really believed in. The Culture Committee, so we're welcoming Yasmeen Turayhi today for taking that route. The Cultural Committee consists today of 7 members. So each one is going to present themselves. One of the members, Zina Ibrahim, she took the vaccine and she cannot participate, so we're going to fill in for her.
Feel well, Zina.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I hope she feels better by tomorrow. Nice.
All right. So I'm going to go present a small video here while we introduce ourselves. My name is Mais Aldahan. I was born and raised in Baghdad, Iraq, where my interest for Iraqi culture and civilization started. I'm currently a dentist practicing in Southern California. Sally gonna take over to introduce herself.
Hi everybody, I'm Sally. I was born and raised in Iraq, graduated from computer science. I arrived in US before 6 years and working as senior application developer. I know Iraqi culture is beautiful and rich and it needs more celebration from our side as Iraqis.
Yes, absolutely. So
how about we know a little bit more about Zina Al-Jawad? Go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Zina Al-Jawad, as Mace shared. I am a social worker. I am also a daughter of Iraqi immigrants. I am a part of the cultural committee because I connect to Iraq through culture, food, music, art, since I've never been able to go. So yeah, thank you all for being here.
Okay, so this is Rana Al-Ani. I am raised and born in Baghdad, Iraq, and I'm graduated from College of Arts, Translation Department, and I worked in a property management company, and I am a member of the SOM cultural community, and I am so interested in the Iraqi culture.
nice. And then Dalia, please present yourself. Maybe we lost Dalia. We can, when she comes back.
Okay, so introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Manal.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, Dalia, please.
Hi, Dalia.
Please.
I don't know if you guys can
yourself.
hear me. My computer keeps freezing. Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah, we hear you.
very well.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, Dalia.
Okay, yeah, we hear you.
Okay, cool. I couldn't hear you for a second. I can't hear anything. I'm just gonna tell you I am. Marhaba. My name is Dalia Al-Jawad. I'm Zina's sister. I'm also the daughter of immigrant parents from Iraq. I'm identify as an environmentalist and an artist, and I am interested in the restoration of Iraqi ecosystems and having a deeper understanding of Iraqi culture from the past and the present and what it's going to look like in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really nice. My name is Manal Ali Shaker. I'm a biomedical engineer and I have a big passion in Iraqi culture. I held many Iraqi cultural events in Southern California. Now that I am heading the SOM Cultural Committee, I plan to have multiple exciting programs for the Iraqi community in California, including building a group to visit historical sites in Iraq, Mesopotamia. So I hope by that time, a lot of us will join in that program. So we have
we can have Zina to tell us a little bit about our organization.
Zina, please.
Yes. So as Ban mentioned a bit earlier, the Spirit of Mesopotamia is a registered nonprofit organization which aims to enrich and provide our community with opportunities to remain connected through holding educational and cultural programs as well as social activities. There is a website, and it's www.bsom.org, which Ban also shared in the chat. And we also have an Instagram and a Facebook that you can follow us on.
Okay, the Spirit of Mesopotamia mission is to provide inclusive community-based spaces to engage, promote, and bring together the Iraqi American community in California. Please kindly, all mics will be muted during conversation. Questions will be entertained via the chat feature on the bottom of the Zoom screen.
The Spirit of Mesopotamia. The Spirit of Mesopotamia's vision is to enable the Iraqi American community of all generations and ethnicities to explore their Iraqi culture and share their heritage with others by engaging in the organization's activities and celebrating their accomplishments.
Excellent.
The Spirit of Mesopotamia is a non-profit organization consists of 4 committees: the Youth Committee, the Social Committee, the Cultural Committee, and the Educational Committee. Please join us by visiting our website at www.bsom.org and follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
The Cultural Committee mission seeks to inspire curiosity, understanding, education, and enjoyment in the historical importance of the cradle of civilization, represented by work of art, culture, and history.
Please kindly, all mics will be muted during conversation. Questions will be entertained via the chat feature on the bottom of the Zoom screen. Zina Al-Jawad, go ahead.
You're muted.
You just muted.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we're gonna get to the meat of the event now, which is the actual interview. So today's program is a conversation with the wonderful Iraqi American filmmaker Yasmeen Turayhi, as Manal mentioned. She played a huge role in A Star in the Desert. We will show you the trailer of this short film right now.
There is a disclaimer. SOM is a non-religious, non-political organization. The views and opinion expressed in the movie may not necessarily represent the views of SOM.
We're gonna show the trailer now.
Breaking news. Warships and planes are currently amassing in the Persian Gulf. There is a growing possibility that bombs may fall in residential neighborhoods.
We'll leave tomorrow, inshallah. I know, Mama, I know we've been through this before, but I don't think he understands. He still talks as if his father will come home.
عليك مغادرة القرية.
Open your eyes, please. Please. Ahmed.
Can we all mute, guys?
Thank you.
Yasmeen Turayhi is the writer and executive producer of a short film, A Star in the Desert, a dramatic fantastical film about the first day of Gulf War in Baghdad, told from a 7-year-old child's point of view, as he comes to terms with his new reality. The film explores how children often retreat to fantasy and dreamscape in order to make sense of what's happening around them during times of tragedy and conflict.
Sally?
Star in the Desert won Best Child Actor at the Beirut International Children's Festival and was selected at the 37th Middle East Studies Association Film Festival.
Dalia?
Yasmeen is also the founder of Modern Product, a product marketing consulting advisory firm, author of Product Marketing Debunked, and editor of the publication The Product Launch, Go-to-Market and Product Marketing Tips, and author of the book Product Marketing Debunked. She is also the host of the video series The Essential Go-to-Market Tips and Strategies, produced by Sharebird.
Yasmeen is on the board of directors of TechWadi, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to creating technology programs between the United States and the greater Middle East.
She's the host of the podcast Gateways to Awakening, produced by Hakawati, where she interviews leading experts in wellness, personal development, and higher consciousness.
She holds a Bachelor of Science from Cornell University and an MBA from Columbia Business School. Please welcome the Iraqi American, full American, Yasmeen Turayhi.
So Yasmeen, are you ready for the questions?
I am ready for the questions. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. I don't think I've ever had an introduction like that. I really appreciate it so much.
You deserve more than that.
Good morning, Yasmeen.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for everyone who's joined today too. Really excited to be here.
We are excited too.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Yasmeen. I know we said a lot about you, but is there anything else that you would like to share about who you are, what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you guys covered most of the bases. I have become a filmmaker kind of by accident in the last couple of years, about 4 years ago, even though my whole life I've been interested in telling stories. And so there's many more stories that I plan to tell, but it's just something that I'm really getting started with right now. So I just wanted to highlight that. And then my other big passion is podcasting and media. And I generally don't like to say that I have one specific career. I like to say that I am interested in following my curiosity. I think there's so much richness in this world, and I'm excited about exploring places and ideas that I don't really know about yet. So my curiosity is what really guides me in life. So.
Yasmeen, tell us what does it mean for you to be an Iraqi American?
Yeah, I think that, being Iraqi, of course, is one thing, being American is one thing, and then being Iraqi American, what I call hyphenated American, is its own separate category that I think a lot of people don't really understand. And even for the Iraqis who move to America, they also become Iraqi Americans, this hyphenated American. And, I think I looked up a stat recently, I might be wrong, but there's so few Iraqi Americans living in the US today. I think it's like around 200,000 or so. So we're a really small group of people. And so, for me, being Iraqi American is really, it's been a journey more than one particular statement. Every couple years of my life has been a new experience of being Iraqi American. So for example, growing up in Chicago, experiencing the first Gulf War, I didn't actually know that my parents were from I knew that my parents were from somewhere else, but I didn't know what that meant in the context of maybe world politics. So it was news to me that my parents were from Iraq. And then over the years, I actually have a huge Iraqi family that lives in Chicago. My mom's a Bahrani. I don't know if you guys know Saad Shubber. She was one of the first female OBGYN physicians to come to Chicago. So she led led kind of like people from our family to come to Chicago. So we have about 70 cousins or so who are all Iraqi American. And so my perspective really has shifted and changed over the years. And then of course, moving to New York, I had a very different experience of what it was to be Iraqi American. But I identify really closely with the culture, even though I haven't spent a lot of time there. I do spend a lot of time in the Middle East, not as much time in Iraq. But I love the music and the food. And I think what's been interesting for me growing up American is seeing such a different perspective and lens on reality through, being a child of Iraqi immigrants. You realize how much, having freedom of speech, you can't take those things for granted, or even just having, just basic things. Even as a female, I feel really treasured to have this experience of growing up in America, but having the values of Iraq and really playing with them to the way that I think makes the most sense in culture. So yeah, I mean, I could go on, but I think for me, it's really, I've identified mostly with the values of the culture, the beauty of the culture, the art. My uncle-in-law is Hassan Masoudi, who's an incredible calligraphist. So he does a lot of calligraphy in Arabic art. And so I think it's really, for me, the blending of these two cultures and how to preserve the beauty of these cultures in America, which is what I really care to appreciate.
Great, thank you.
Yasmeen, why did you want to make this movie?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I noticed that there were, the first Gulf War happened, and then of course the second Gulf War happened. And I kept noticing that there were so many movies made about the Gulf War, and none of them, at least in the West, were from the perspective of an Iraqi American or an Iraqi period. I think someone's talking. So I really wanted to preserve the reality of film from the lens of an Iraqi family. And I just felt there were no movies that really did that justice. At best, we saw Iraqis were were the victims. And then at worst, they were essentially the antagonists or like the enemy in film. And so we never really saw the humanization of an Iraqi, especially during the time of war. So I really wanted to capture that in a film, because I think films really bring people together. They really unify people, and they help connect us through time and space, through cultures, through religion, through all of it. I also did not want to make a political statement. I didn't want to make a political film. And I was like, how can we tell our story that depicts our story without having any kind of agenda? And so I was really adamant about telling that story that I felt was missing in culture, right? And we oftentimes I don't know if you guys notice this, but oftentimes if you do not tell your story, someone else tells your story for you. And so it's really felt like so many people were telling the story of war, and no one, from Iraq was telling that story, or at least had access to tell that story in the West. And I had heard about what it was like to grow up during the first Gulf War, during the second Gulf War, through all my cousins who came over the years. So what really inspired me to write A Star in the Desert was one comment that my cousin made. He said, you don't know what it was like to live during the war and go to sleep at night because you didn't know if you would wake up alive the next day. And he talked about like hiding in the Sardab. And so, so that was really the inspiration for telling specifically A Star in the Desert.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very touching. So would you have something?
I think Dahlia has a question.
Yes. What is challenging about being Iraqi American? This is something I can also identify with.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of challenges. I felt that really, really misunderstood growing up. So, there weren't a lot of Iraqi Americans in my community. I grew up in Chicago. I lived in New York for 14 years, lived in the Bay Area for 7.5 years. I'm now in Chicago visiting my parents. But I always felt like, regardless of whatever group I was in, whether it was American or even Arab, I was always the only Iraqi, always. I think in my when I went to Cornell in 2001, I was one of the only Iraqis, I think, in my entire class. So not having anyone who shared what it was like to, have parents who were from Iraq or culturally identify as Iraqi was really tough. I think the closest, countries next to us felt more like home to me. But of course, there are nuances and differences, especially in the language, right? So I thought, that part was hard, just not having any identification with other people in my group. And I think, I'm sure that you guys maybe feel the same way, but when you grow up in a country that is going to war against the country that your parents come from, I think that also gave me such cognitive dissonance about like my identity, like who am I? And, how do I, even just perceiving, how I show up as an American, right? And who my parents are and what the allegiance and loyalty that I have, it just felt very confusing. And especially since so many people were going to, join the war, right? From the American side. So it just felt very confusing being American. But I would say like feeling misunderstood, feeling confused. I also started college in 2001 in New York, right? So that was really, really difficult. And I think, again, like there's just so little information right now about what it is to be Iraqi that I find it so difficult to explain the treasures and the beauty of our culture, because so much of that is told through stories. Like my family talks about the 1970s and the movement of art and fashion and, economics and, and Baghdad was also this incredible intellectual capital. So it just feels like all those stories are not shared in the mainstream media. We don't have any, really kind of cutting edge movies coming out or mainstream movies coming out. Maybe they exist in the Middle East, but in the West, I think so many people have one understanding of Iraq, and that is usually a one-dimensional view told by media. So it really is up to us to start telling our own stories and sharing that. And I think the other piece is that I think Iraqis like to keep things very close to their hearts and not share. It's always about like, don't share anything, don't tell people what's happening, and like having more of a private life and creating a private life that's different from your public life. And, and so I think there was also a lot of a risk for me to tell these stories because I don't know what people's perspective is, but frankly, I think it's more important that we tell our stories because otherwise they're going to be gone, so that's really challenging.
Very well said.
Yasmeen, we are so proud of you with all these achievements and all this energy that's oozing. Can you share with us some of your future plans?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually did, really well with this last film, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. It's not public yet because we're still in the film festival circuit. It's a short film, by the way, so it's not a feature film. But we actually just won another award, the Hollywood Boulevard Film Festival. We became a finalist for Best Drama in 2021. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, I'm really new to the film space. It's incredibly difficult to make a movie. And by the way, Manal also helped us with the clothing. We were able to really replicate what it was like to be in Baghdad because she donated a lot of the clothes that we used for the film. So we're so excited. If you saw in the trailer, the woman, Sarah Abi Kanan, who's actually a very famous actress in Lebanon, was wearing the really beautiful dress. So we're so excited to share this film. And one other thing I want to say before I talk about my future projects is that a lot of people ask, like, why did you make this movie in English? Why did you not make it in Arabic? So one big thing that I think we face as a difficulty in Iraqi culture is that there's so few actors that can speak the Iraqi dialect. So like the pool of people that you can choose from is basically non-existent, right? So you'd have like different Egyptian dialect, Lebanese dialect, Iraqi dialect. So it's already confusing. We spent maybe like 7 weeks having debates about just the Fusha piece and the animation part. So, so it's really difficult to make a film in Iraqi Arabic when there's not a lot of people to cast from. So that's the main piece. And then, future projects. Oh, just to answer that, to finish that thought. So I decided to make it in English because I felt like people in Iraq already knew what it was like to go through the Gulf War, and people in the Middle East know what it's like to go through war, but people in America and the West don't. And I wanted it to be in the language that they understood the most, like what it would be like to be on the receiving end of a war. And I made it through the lens of fantasy drama, so it was not political. It's about a boy who goes into the underworld on the eve of the first Gulf War, and he doesn't know what's real, what's not real. He encounters creatures, and he's essentially looking for his dad, and he wants to be reunited with his father, who had already passed away. And so he creates a whole fictional reality while this war is playing out. And it's a beautiful but tragic story about war, and also a child's imagination to disconnect from reality. And so I actually got the inspiration of this fantasy when my friend said, oh yeah, I just remember that my mom would say, we're going to go to this neighborhood because they think that the bombs are going to be dropped in this neighborhood. And then we'd kind of travel around to different neighborhoods. And I just remember I was 7 years old, and I was holding my like Scooby-Doo doll with me and dragging my doll. And all I cared about was playing with my doll. And I thought it was fun. It's like, oh yeah, we get to play, with a different space and time with this new doll. So I said, oh, isn't that interesting to talk about it from the perspective of a child who doesn't know what's happening, and it's just, I think it brings everyone who is a human will feel something with this movie. I mean, a lot of my friends have never experienced anything of Iraq, and most of them were in tears by the end. So I feel very proud of that. And then the other two films I have is about growing up Iraqi American, coming of age Iraqi American, and it follows the story of two women, and that's a full feature film. And then another film is called the Al Mansour Social Club, which is about the 1970s in Baghdad. So those two films I actually wrote as full features, and they both got into the second round of the Sundance Writing Lab. So they have had some recognition, but I haven't actually moved them forward because it's very time consuming and expensive to make a film. So I have to have the right mindset to move those things forward. And so more stories are coming. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that my mom painted. She's an artist. And so she painted all the pictures in A Star in the Desert when we were promoting the film. It was made into a very short story. You can find it on Amazon right now if you want to read it. It's extremely short. So you could take a look at, if you want to just check out the story. It's also on Kindle, and all the artwork is my mom's artwork.
Wow, very nice. Wow, it's certainly a job well done, and we're all proud of you here.
Oh, so, thank you so much.
I'm sure there are a lot of questions among us. So whoever has a question, they can write it down at the chat area. And while you're doing that, we're going to have a little quiz about the Mesopotamia civilization. And then you can just click the one that you think is correct.
All right, yeah, just ready? We're gonna start. Okay. Oh my
God. Okay, so we have.
Oh. All right, keep working. No Google, guys.
Yeah. So we have one of us. Okay. Actually, we're getting like almost equal answers for each one.
How much more minute time do you want to give them?
Let's when they stop clicking on. I think okay. Let's just write them down. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
People are changing their answers.
Yeah. Very good. So we have 26, 20. Okay. Oh, it keeps changing.
Yes, I think we can take a screenshot of that.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. It's
okay.
We're getting better.
Okay.
So Let me take a picture of the screen. Okay, excellent.
Okay.
So the correct answer got 43%. Very good. So can you show the?
I have a picture to share with you.
Yeah.
That will give you some more time to ask you questions. But the correct answer is, can you share, tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, it is the third one, actual number 3, and it got the highest score. So I'm proud of you all. So the Sumerian, the Akkadian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and then some people, because the Babylonian raised again, so some people, they got it switched, but it's fine. So number 3 was correct, and we got 43% of us said the correct answer. So I'm proud of you all.
Good job.
Good job. So let's see, are there any questions? Ban, did you see any questions? Ban,
yes, I've been collecting the questions. Everyone, of course, Yasmeen, if you want to take a look at the comments, everyone was blown away by you, obviously, with good reason. They really loved your way of thinking, your approach, the reason you started all of this. There are lots of positive comments and lots of nods in the chat for you. Everyone was very excited to hear you speak, and you spoke on behalf of them and you represented them well. So thank you for that. We do have questions. I'll ask on behalf of the people who typed them up. The first of these questions is, where in the Middle East have you gone, and what has been your experience as an Iraqi American there? The reason they're asking this, I'm wondering if any of these places felt like home for you, especially since there is a lot of cultural overlap across the Middle Eastern countries. So that's a big thing, but leave it to you to answer. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have been to Iraq, Baghdad, and other cities. And then I've been all over the Middle East. So Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Morocco, Tunisia, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Lebanon many times, Syria. I went to Syria before.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've been all over the Middle East, and I think because I'm on the board of Tech Wadi, I do a lot of mentorship with people in the Middle East. There's a lot of different accelerators that I work with, so different entrepreneurs, and I help guide them and mentor them. So that's been a big part of my life. And I think I do identify closely with other Arabs. I think for me, maybe Lebanon has felt the closest to home because I just, enjoy the kind of melting pot of cultures. And I also studied abroad in Beirut a very, very long time ago. And I was just there, not obviously last summer, but the summer before, where I met my team, Hakawati. So Hakawati is the largest, the most well-known now podcasting platform in the Middle East. So they have 6 shows, 4 are in Arabic, 2 are in English, and one of them is my show. So I actually work very closely with the Hakawati team. And so I talk to Beirut almost every day or every other day. And so I feel very close to the region. I also did a State Department. This was like a, long time ago, maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago or so. I did a State Department tour for Tunisia and Morocco. So that was really helpful. And got to meet a lot of really interesting people. We worked with the consulate. We presented with groups of investors. So we were just trying to help people, like, really bolster the region and give people the tools to become empowered. I also mentored someone in Iraq recently, maybe like a year ago, for about 5 months. And it was just exciting to see what's happening in the technology space in Iraq. There's a group called 51 Labs, which has basically created an accelerator in Iraq for Iraqis to grow and learn from each other. So I worked really closely with this one young, like 22-year-old female engineer. And I was just blown away by her knowledge, what she was building. I was like, I don't know how you know this. Like, people in California can't even do this, who are in Silicon Valley. So I was just, very impressed, very excited about what's happening. But I think there's nothing quite like being in the company of other Iraqis. So.
Thank you. another question that's come in is, where do you see yourself in Hollywood? Any plans? What advice? Well, actually, there are three questions, but they're in a single comment. So, any plans? What advice can you give to Iraqi young Iraqi ladies who would like to choose this career?
Yeah, Hollywood is an interesting industry. I would say that there is not a lot of space for women in general.
This Iraqi group, they have a new group, the young.
Sorry. Yeah,
okay.
I mute everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hollywood is a tough place in general. I mean, if you look at the stats right now, so I was the writer and executive producer and co-producer for the film, but I didn't direct it. I didn't want to take the chance on directing because it's a very, specific craft. But I would say Hollywood is just not really friendly towards female directors. Of course, like things have been changing. They're getting better and better every year. But if you look at the stats, like I think I read somewhere that there's like less than 3% of films are directed by females. Like, just so that in itself is really just alarming. And then I think being, an Arab woman, I've definitely met some folks in the industry. There's a couple Iraqi ones as well. I think that the most difficult part of making a film is always the funding. And so for me, I just thought it was really difficult to get funding for the film over a period of time. I eventually got it from different Arab communities and also Iraqi communities, but the other Arab communities really stepped in to help finish the film. And it was with people that I had conversations with. So so I would say, my advice is just to create stories, write stories. I think that our time is still maybe a little bit early. So if you start writing stories now, like, so for example, Ugly Betty is a show about like growing up Latin American. And that took so many years for America to want to see Latin Americans and that became popular in mainstream culture. So I just think we're very early right now with our ability to really make a huge impact in Western media. So that doesn't mean that the time won't come. And I think we're seeing, shows like Rami, which became very popular. And I think that there's a lot of interest and room for it. So I don't know, like I've heard both camps. Like I've been told like nobody's going to be interested in this unless you have an American lead. And then other people are just like, no, we want diversity. We want to see films and shows and stuff that are different. I think Hollywood is kind of like focused on just making money and capitalism. Also, I had read this also somewhere, not entirely sure about the exact number, but about 50% of the funding for Hollywood comes from China. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, like that makes a huge difference on who becomes the antagonist in films. So do you ever see a Chinese antagonist? No. Yeah, it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference in culture. And I think a lot of people are not paying attention to how important that is. So, just something to really think about is, you can support the arts in different ways. You can support, people, because I think that what I kept getting to was that people said, what is this film going to really do? Like, how is it going to really change? I'm not going to really see anything from the film, but it has really impacted so many people at the core when they see it. They finally identify with like, what to be a mother who lives in a war zone, who like doesn't know what's going to happen to her son and what's going to happen to her. So yeah, it's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. You're right. There are so many different things that you had to overcome. I think that's a whole other movie that you'd need to make to tell us that story of how you overcame all these different challenges that you faced, and how you managed to get to the other side and actually make this movie. There's another question for you. Do you think about
just have a small comment before the next question?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. How many more questions are there, Ban?
There are 2 more questions.
2 more questions. Okay. We're going to entertain the 2 more questions. Okay. But I want to thank everyone who attended, and especially we have 2 dignitary from the Iraqi consulate, Dr. Salwan Sinjari. Yeah. If you have anything to add, and also Ustad Aqil Sudani. So feel free if you want to say something. Dr. Salwan.
أهلا وسهلا بكم. شكرا لحضوركم.
Unmute if you want to say something.
السلام عليكم جميع. فرصة طيبة أنه حقيقة نشترك لأول مرة مع الموجودين. فخور جدا ب ياسمين واللي قدمته. حقيقة في نفس الحاجة أن يكون هناك شانل نقل مو دائما المعاناة من العراق، قد تكون هي نقلت جزء من المعاناة اللي عاش فيها، ممكن قسم من عندنا عشناها في العراق نقلها للثقافة الأمريكية. لكن أتصور أيضا ياسمين تقدر تنقل أيضا صور مشرقة بالمستقبل أو أجزاء مضيئة من الثقافة العراقية تنقلها أيضا الأمريكان. أيضا عندي سؤال سريع وإحنا في نهاية النشاط هذا، إنه هل هناك أي مشاريع أخت ياسمين في التعامل مع، يعني كأمريكية عراقية تتعامل مع وتنتج أو تساهم في فيلم عراقي؟ إحنا مؤخرا صار عندنا شوية يعني أنشطة أو توجهات لإنتاج فيلم عراقي بحت، وقبل فترة كان عندنا فيلم الرحلة الجيرني لمحمد الدراجي، وساهمت في يعني تقريبا بشكل عام كان جهد عراقي، ولأول مرة يكون عندنا فيلم من إنتاج عراقي خاص like private sector خلينا نسميه. هل هناك أي خطة بالنسبة لها أنه تساهم في فيلم عراقي يعني يساهم في فيلم خلينا نسميه أمريكي هناك عراقية العكس؟ وشكرا مرة ثانية لاستضافة مساهمتي.
Did you understand, Yasmeen, the question?
Yeah.
No.
I think she needs translation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Ban, do you want to?
Sure. Basically.
ممكن أنا أسأل.
Okay. تفضل دكتور.
سؤال صح فاتني هذا الموضوع إنه ياسمين, again I'm very proud of you. I'm the Consul General of Iraq in Los Angeles. My question was that, is there any plan to participate in any Iraqi movie in the future?
Yeah, so like films made in Iraq, is that what you're asking? Or films made in Iraq? Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, we started to work in Iraq. You know, there is we like a little steps in Iraq to have Iraqi movies or film.
You know, I would love to film one of my movies in Iraq, especially at the Al Mansour Social Club, which is, you know, takes place entirely in the 1970s in Baghdad. That would be incredible if we could film that. But I've known of a couple people through like loose friends who are doing some sort of filming in Iraq, but I'm not plugged into that community. It's really hard to figure out who they are and where they are, because I think I'm also really interested in telling stories from the perspective of Iraq, but for the West, because I think so much of that is missing right now. Like Americans don't understand the culture. They don't understand, you know, what it was like for the last 30, 40 years. And by the way, like 1970s Iraq, which I think is such an incredible, rich time, such a really fascinating time. I did a lot of research when I wrote the film. I interviewed a lot of people. I don't even think we have stories like that in Iraq, period. So it's really cool to be able to tell those stories, preserve the culture, and really share it with mainstream. I mean, it's really shocking. Like so much has happened in the country on so many levels, right? Not just war, but like, you know, politically, culturally, from an economic perspective, and so little information is shared in mainstream culture, especially in the West. Like so few people know at all what's going on. I was actually just showing my friends Iraqi American Idol. There's actually like an Iraqi Idol.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because their mouths just drop wide open, because they're just like, wow, the only images I see on the screen are ones that are, you know, of poverty, of war. So there's really like that richness, and even just like how we like to dress up, and, you know, how we like to, you know, it's like always wanting to have like a sense of fashion, right? Like that piece of it, I feel like is not really presented in Western culture. So and also just the values, the beauty, the values, the generosity, the spirit of what it was like to grow up Iraqi American. I feel like all that is missing right now. So whatever, if it's working with Iraqi filmmakers or working with people in the US, you know, we had a huge multidisciplinary group of people in the US work on this. We had like every Arab nationality. The boy was Syrian. Our mother was Lebanese. We had Khalid Abou Naga, who's very famous in Egypt. He was the dad. We had, we had every Arab nationality in the film. And we also had a lot of different nationalities working on the film. So even for them, it was very educational, right? Like they really, we had Americans who were just like, wow, I had no, there was not a single dry eye during the filming scene of the mom when she sees her son. It's like everyone was crying, didn't matter where. And so that's really what I think we need to be telling, these stories of unity, of family. Like a mother's love for her child is the same everywhere in the world. So that's really where, and I think because I'm not fluent in Iraqi Arabic, and it's interesting, I was telling someone this, that I never got the opportunity to spend the summers in Iraq. I was 7, the first Gulf War happened. The year before I went to Iraq, but then every summer, all my friends who are from, Jordan, who are from Lebanon, they always went every summer, and I never went, and so I feel like a little bit of my childhood was like robbed from me of being able to connect, with the culture. So that's, hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Yasmeen. So maybe we can find the right people in Iraq.
I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Yasmeen. Ban, can you please?
We've got a lot more questions coming in.
Nice.
We love the questions. So I don't know if we have the time. Maybe we'll have just one more question. And I don't know, Yasmeen, if you're okay with us sending you the questions. Maybe Manal can send you the remaining questions for you to answer. And we can put them up on the website if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Do you think we can extend it maybe to
I'm okay with it. I don't know yet, Yasmeen.
Another 10 minutes, is that okay?
Yeah, I think, let me see the time. I have about 10 more minutes. We had a family health scare, which is why there's been a little bit of sensitivity in our household, so I have to just get back to that. But everything is fine now, but yeah, I have about 10 more minutes.
Yeah, let's have another 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one of the questions, Yasmeen, is do you think about opening your films in LA? When and where? People are very excited about, even the comments, they were really wanting to know when they could see the movie, and they were hoping we were going to show it next, but of course it's not released yet. So it'd be great if you could give us more details, and when you do, we can upload it to the website.
Yeah. So it's a short film. So it's, about 20 minutes. It's not very long. But I think because there's no real platform to, like most of the platforms like Netflix are all like for full feature films. So we'll probably just upload it ourselves at some point, but we have to wait until the film festival circuit is over, because the film festivals basically say like, you can't send the film to the festivals if it's already publicly released, which is why we haven't publicly released it. But I should probably be ready by summer or late summer, and maybe even sooner. So if you send me your email, I will let you know, but the best way to keep track is to go to our Facebook page. So if you look up my name, it should show up as like writer of, and then you'll see that I can actually send it to you guys if you want to send it to everyone who joined, and they could just follow that way. Yeah.
And so you're going to make it available on Netflix for people to access? Is that what you're saying? Or is it going to be available on a website?
It's going to be probably available on a website, because Netflix right now is not doing short films. A lot of these platforms are just doing full-length films, so we'll probably have to do it on our own platform. And unfortunately, because of COVID too, we've had to cancel a lot of our in-person premieres, and we were actually going to show it at this independent theater in Dubai as like a short film before a full feature film, and all those things got unfortunately canceled because of COVID. So.
Okay, so you mentioned funding during the question and the Q&A. Where do you get funding for something like that, for a project like that?
Yeah, so this film was incredibly expensive to make. We have fantastical creatures, we have animation, we had a 7-year-old boy, so you have to hire extra people, like parental watch for them. We had horses in the desert. We had everything you could imagine. So this film was extremely expensive to make. It's probably not a good idea for your first film. But it was brutal, to be totally honest. And I think that's why I'm like, making another film, it just takes a lot out of you. Like, forget becoming president and having gray hair. you'll age like 15 years making a movie, because it's just, and I've done, I've worked in places like New York City in like the most corporate, horrendous environments, mergers and acquisitions, like intense corporate environments, and nothing was more brutal because you have so many people to manage. Like my business partner and I, we hired 35 people. We had at one point like 80 people working with us. Pre-production, filming, post-production, all that, it just adds up. And so it's a very expensive, just so you guys know, it's about 6 to 10 grand for 1 minute to make a movie. So it's not a cheap hobby, and it depends also. There's a lot of different variables, right? So if you want to film a movie, make it a talking head, like 2 people in a living room. Most of the conversation is just regular life. Ours was just in Iraq. That in itself cost so much money. How do we replicate Iraq 1990, 1991? How do we get these fantastical creatures built? I mean, it was insane. But the funding, we did a Kickstarter. You can actually check out the Kickstarter. It's still live. When I was like asking people like, oh, we're gonna come support us on this vision. And it felt at the time, my parents were like, are you insane? Like, what do you just quit your job to go do this? And like, why are you? And I work in tech. So, I think as most of you probably are aware, like the Iraqi philosophy is like, make money and be a professional. Don't do this artistic thing. So it was really difficult. And then eventually I got 4 different people in my community who are venture capitalists, CEOs of tech companies who wrote me checks, but that's not usual. I think, I think for a lot of people, like they have to work with people who are actually funding these films. And I kind of, because I was a short film, because it was the first time, I don't know if it was also because I was female, I don't know. But it just felt like it was only people that knew me that were like, okay, Yasmeen. But I called like hundreds of people, and I think, I got used to being humiliated, to be totally honest. Just like so many times people saying,
you became numb to it.
You just got numb to it. Yeah, I think at a certain point, and it's amazing how things work out, because at a certain point, in like when we actually ran out of money, day 6 of filming, I mean, it was just insane. And we went to the airport, and I had to fly back from LA to San Francisco, and I'm crying. My director just like, everyone's just like, what are we going to do? Because the kid also is 7, right? He's growing teeth. We have to like film this as soon as possible. So he says, well, just call this guy who like promised you to give you 1 day. And I was like, yeah, he didn't answer my call. Like I call him like 10 times. Like I'm not this person who calls people more than once. If they don't pick up, I call him like 10 times. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's ignoring me. And he's like, just call 1 more time. So I call, he picks up, he doesn't know it's me. And I'm like, I literally just ask him in 10 seconds, I need this on this date. And he's like, who's this? And I said, oh, it's, Yasmeen. I called you 6 months ago. You said yes. And he just was like, I'm at the airport right now. He's like, yeah, okay, fine. He just wanted to get rid of me. And he said, just talk to my assistant. So I just, it's like, you have to be able to be really flexible and very, very aggressive about moving things forward. So I just emailed his assistant. I said, so-and-so said we can use, it was incredible. We actually got to use Blue Cloud Ranch, which is where the Hurt Locker got shot. So I felt very excited that we were making our film at a place where they were talking about war from a very different perspective. So it was exciting, but it was brutal. I mean, I think it took me a year to recover from making that movie. No one knows like how hard it is. It's just brutal. You're working 18-hour days when you're actually shooting, very little sleep. Like we would eat dinner at 2 a.m. So yeah, it was brutal.
That's really incredible, Yasmeen. So we have 1 more minute. How about that, Ban? What do we have? We have more questions?
The last question is actually mine, because I'm excited as a tech person. How did you transition from being because you said you got a Bachelor in Science, and from Cornell, which is, I mean, such an easy university to get into. So you got into Cornell, you got the degree, and then you said, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go make a film. This is what I want to do. How did you?
What's even worse, Ban, is that I actually went to business school at Columbia. So I now had some loans to pay off.
Yeah.
So I think, it's a bit of a long story, but the short story is I was working in tech, and I'd also been working in corporate in New York. And I was like, oh, tech is way better than corporate. I love the entrepreneurial spirit of it, but I felt like I have more to give this world. You know, I have more to share with this world. And I have always been so transfixed by movies and storytelling. And most of the time when I tell people what it's like to grow up Iraqi American, there's a sense of like, oh, like I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. And I essentially just walked out of my office. I said, I'm giving my 2 weeks. I'm not coming back. And it started a little bit of a journey for me to really live the life that I wanted. I was like, I don't wait till I'm like 65 to live the life I want after retirement. You know, I want to live it now. Like, I don't want to miss every moment of this experience. So I want to be here. And yes, I walked out of my job. I had no plan B. Not a smart thing to do if you live in San Francisco by yourself. I essentially it all were I don't like it was from God or the universe or whatever. The moment I left, I was very scared because my whole life I was always like a little bit scared of taking a leap. Like I was like, no, I got to just do this. It's safe. It's safe. It's safe. And at that point, I just was like, you know what? What would it be like if I trusted, you know, in this? What would it be like if there was trust? And I just let go. And the moment I let go, all of a sudden opportunities came. So for the last 4 years, I've actually been consulting and I've built my own consulting practice. So I work with companies, but I create my own schedule. So I can do my creative work. I can do my podcasting, my media stuff, my film stuff, my writing, but I also work. So I don't do a full load. I don't have a full-time job. And I think that freed up a lot of space in my brain to emotionally give to other things. So it's been like the best 4 years. In the last 4 years, I wrote a book, I made a movie, hired 30 people. I wrote 2 other full feature films, and I have 2 other podcasts. No, I have 3 podcasts. So all those things happened just in the last 4 years. And it was because I just like let go of like doing what everyone else was doing. So I think we all have within us this like inner artist who can create. And I think that the hardest part about being an artist or being a creator is that 95% of the world, or maybe even more, are just consumers. They're just critics. So I think, you know, just even having like one person tell me, oh, I didn't like it, or it could have been better. It just like it hits your gut. Like someone's telling you your baby's ugly. And so I just got used to that. I was like, you know what, whether people love it or whether they don't, it's okay. It's not about me. Like, I'm just a channel to bring this out in the world. And I think like, it's so much more fun to be a creator than to be watching and judging. And so I'm, you know, now I know how hard it is to make a film. I'll never watch a movie the same. You know, I'll never say this is the worst movie ever. Like, I know how hard it is to make a film. And sometimes your actors are not in a good mood, and you know, things don't work out the way that you expect. And it's really hard. So I have a lot of respect for the craft.
Thank you so much, Yasmeen. It's incredible. I can't thank you enough for all the things that you're doing and did for us. We really appreciate it.
Oh,
let's give her a hand.
Thank you, Manal. Thank you for everyone joining, and the Spirit of Mesopotamia, and Mohaned and the rest of the team. All of you guys are just incredible, creating this organization and giving us a platform to come together. I have so much, you know, my heart just goes to this community, and I loved even watching the video and learning more about the program. So I'm here to help. If you guys want any resources, I'm here for you.
Yeah, we're not going to leave you alone. We're going to keep following you, following your achievements. And I want to thank everyone, each and everyone that attended this this Zoom meeting. I think it's really nice, educational, and follow us. We're going to do a lot of these beautiful programs, and we're going to meet exciting people just like Yasmeen. And eventually we'll arrange a trip to visit Iraq, to see the Mesopotamia civilization. So tell your friends, join us, and we look forward to see you all. Thank you so much. I appreciate every one of you. Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for all of you for your nice comments and for the encouraging words. Without you, we won't continue. So please continue your support, and we will meet you in future events. Thanks all.
You want to say something?
Thank you. It was very nice to having you, Yasmeen, and it was really nice information and everything. Thank you everybody for attendance, and wish to see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Recording.
وقفت